Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to another tier list because I quite enjoy making these tier lists for Dead Island and the series in general. So we're going to be making another one, and this one is covering all of the areas within Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide. This is not including sub areas such as the supermarket, pr- uh, police station, insides of buildings, all of those sort of smaller sub areas. Town Hall is also not included in here either, but it is including all of the main maps that you travel to throughout Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide. And in the background here we have got um, Dead Island 2's soundtrack playing because for the last one, ranking the weapons, we had Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide soundtrack. Escape Dead Island does not appear to be found anywhere that I can find it, so we're sticking with Dead Island 2 for this one. But yeah, so getting into it, obviously this is going to be my personal opinion. Um, First and foremost, based on how much I enjoyed the areas, and we're also going to be ranking them on how many quests there are, what there is to do, how nice they look, what zombies there are, how easy they are to traverse, whether or not they overstay their welcome, those sorts of things. Um, so with that, if you want to make your own tier list, I will leave a link to this in the description down below, and you can, of course, join the Discord. It will also be in the description, and you can post what yours looks like in there. And obviously, feel free to talk about this in the comments, because no doubt your opinion on these things will be different to mine, because nobody has the same opinion on everything, do they? Um, so yeah, with that, we're going to be getting into this, starting with the resort. And the resort is a S tier for me personally. I love the resort, as does most other people, because it is the brightest area in Dead Island. It's also, where you start, so it's the starting area. It's where you first get to grips with the game. It's just really nice looking. It really sells the whole tropical island atmosphere. Um, the zombies in there aren't that difficult, even when you do meet more difficult zombies later on, such as rams, butchers, stuff like that. They don't spawn in the resort, making it relatively safe. You only have suiciders and thugs to deal with in terms of special infected. So it's a really nice early game area. It's where you first meet some of our favourite um, NPCs, such as Cinemoy. Everyone loves Svetlana, and you can find Svetlana in the Diamond Bungalows. So, yeah, there we go. There's that for you as well. And then we also, it's just like the first area you go to. It's just really nice. It doesn't overstay its welcome too much. You have places like the hotel that you can travel to, various standout features. The various bungalow districts. You've got the old marina workshop where Earl upgrades your armored truck. You have the bunkers. Bunkers are always fun to explore. You have the lighthouse, the hotel. They're all sorts of standout areas. There are some forgetful areas, definitely. The beaches. Who really tends to go over the beaches? You have um, the sort of beyond the city tunnel gas station. You have that sort of area, which is the sort of flooded area where you've got Bunker 06, where you meet Jose Garcia, um, and but even so, it's just a really nice area. Um, it's really fun, not too challenging, doesn't overstay its welcome. Yes, there's plenty to do, plenty to see, and yeah, in general, it's just a really, really, really cool area. Um, Controversially, I'm going to put Moresby in um, A tier for me, because, all right, hear me out. People will probably put this in like C, D, or F tier, I'm sure. But for me, whenever I'm away from Moresby, whenever I've been playing the game and I'm playing, New Game Plus or something, and I'm in the resort or I'm in the prison, or even, I come back to it and I'm in the lab or something, and I'll go, I really want to play in Moresby a bit because I just get that sort of weird nostalgia and longing for being in Moresby. And then I'll get to Moresby, and after being in Moresby for like an hour or so, I'll go, yeah, okay, I'm done with Moresby. Um, but that's not a slight on Moresby per se. That's a slight on me and how I work and feel about it. Because Moresby really sells the whole zombie apocalypse vibe, the whole feel of being alone. You know, you're in an abandoned city near enough that's overrun by zombies. And overrun by zombies is right. There is a lot of zombies in Moresby. It's got a pretty high zombie concentration to area. You've got walkers, you've got infected, you've got obviously thugs, suiciders, and rams. And you know, Moresby is a perfect place for rams because it's pretty enclosed. The streets are pretty enclosed with tall buildings on either side. It's not that easy to drive around. About half of it is inaccessible to vehicles. Um, but you know, the rams give a decent challenge. Um, yeah, in terms of where they spawn and where they're placed very strategically. Um, to give you challenge, but they're not. It's not entirely impossible to deal with them like it is in Henderson. Um, you know, there is room to maneuver. There is room. There are side streets. There are places to duck in that you can avoid. That you can avoid rams. You can sort of dodge to the side, and you can do your strategy to kill them. And you know, they're not too challenging in Moresby. They're a decent challenge, a decent step up from the resort to put you really into the mid game. And the atmosphere, it's just a really, really good atmosphere for selling the whole, you know, zombie apocalypse vibe. It is an abandoned city with NPCs that are crowded in a couple of safe zones, and that's it. You've got punks who are, you know, hostile, trying to kill you, and it just, you know, really sells the whole vibe. The rain as well adds in a nice depth to it. It gives you that sort of misery um, that you would associate with a zombie outbreak. And once again, there is a lot of notable areas within Moresby. You know, you've obviously got the church, you've got the police station, quarantine. Obviously, that's a big one. You have, you know, Garrett Grant's recording studio, which is kind of like the only thing in Old Town, I think it is. You know, you have the pump station, the wastewater plant where you escort Joseph to. Yeah, there's a lot of notable landmarks that you can list in Moresby without having to go to something like the Wiki to figure out the name or where they are. You know, and Ryder White's campaign starts off in Moresby, in the dark, which is very cool. Even if the campaign itself is not very good, it's fun to see Moresby at night time. So yeah, for me, Moresby, it's just really fun. I like Moresby. Not not to mention verticality. There's a lot of verticality in Moresby. Um, you don't have to travel along the roads if you don't want to. Obviously, there are some places where you have to, but once you unlock the sewers, you've got sewer access to get around Moresby. You also have various ladders and upper walkways and catwalks that you can use to get around. There's a surprising level of verticality that you can get in Moresby that doesn't involve you just travelling at street level. And safe houses also help you travel around. Shame about the fact that there's not that many vehicles, but you know, it is a slum. The roads were probably already pretty cluttered. With the zombie outbreak, people are going to be crashing their cars because they're getting turned and infected and, you know, eaten by zombies. So the cluttering of it does sort of make sense. So personally, I like Moresby. It's not as fun as the resort, obviously, but personally, I quite like Moresby. The sewers now. I don't actually mind the sewers that much. A lot of people hate the sewers, and I can certainly understand that. Why? However, for me personally, I don't mind the sewers that much because outside of doing the main quest to go to the supermarket and back again, the sewers are entirely optional, right? Um, the sewers are definitely not the best because it is easy to get lost. They are pretty claustrophobic. If you don't have a waypoint outside on the surface that will direct you, you are kind of lost and don't know where you're going. Which is a shame because if I take you to the sewers here, um, sewers map. Here you go. We'll go sewers map large. As you can see, a map doesn't exist. Here, made by a very old contributor to the wiki. But as you can see, the map does exist here. Here you go, and it's all laid out. And this person obviously did help transfer this over, but they didn't necessarily make this map because this map exists within the Dead Island strategy guide, the Dead Island strategy guide made by Prima. No, never mind. We're going here. We're going other, and we're going. Never mind. I forget the proper name of it. Official strategy guide. That's what I was missing. But yeah, so in here, and we go to maps, and you know it includes all of the main areas, including the sewers and police station, and the hotel. The sewers has a map. A map was created to help guide you through it. It just doesn't exist in game, and I don't know why. Like it would be pretty easy for them to add the map in and allow you to traverse it because and look at it rather. But probably they didn't do that because it does involve some verticality, but then other places include verticality, and they don't. I don't know why. Maybe they just didn't like how. Maybe they just didn't like how this was all laid out, in that it's all segmented up because of the verticality. I don't know. But as you can see, it exists. A map for the sewers does exist. It doesn't allow you to access it in game, and I don't know why, and it's really sad. However, during the main quest, it does give you waypoints to travel to, so you don't get necessarily lost that way. If you learn the sewers layout, you can make your way back yourself to the town hall, which is what people do to farm the supermarket. It's what they do to farm the supermarket for things like brand champagne to give to Svetlana to have infinite diamonds. But otherwise, the sewers are entirely optional, and that's the good thing about them, is that they're an option there that you don't have to use if you don't want to. Certainly, I don't use them. The sewers are probably a quicker way of traversing Moresby than going around via the surface, via the main roads, because there's relatively large sections of sewer that don't include any zombies in it. They're definitely not as busy as they are as main Moresby is. But even so, you can find some things in there. Obviously, the sewer does have a skull altar location that you'll need if you want the DevCraft mod. It's got some metal chests. It's got some mods in it, but all of them you can find as you're traversing the main quest. So, it's kind of one of those areas that makes sense because it's under Moresby. Moresby would have a sewer network. It's a functional city, so a sewer network is probably needed, and people would obviously go down there, and in order to get around certain sections of Moresby, the sewer probably does make sense. So it's thematic to be here, but at the same time, it's not that fun. It's certainly not that fun. The floaters kind of make it a chore to get through, and the sewers definitely aren't somewhere I'm really excited to go back to. The jungle, I'm going to put the jungle kind of in B as well, I think. I don't mind the jungle that much. However, again, it's not somewhere I'm particularly excited to go back to. It looks nice, the sounds and the whole, green lush jungle vibe is definitely there. There are vehicles to get around, which is good, and it's pretty open as well for both foot traffic and vehicle traffic. So it's not the hardest thing to get around like Moresby is. And there are NPCs and everything like that. It's certainly more open. It's more populated, even if some of those populations are people trying to kill you like Afran. However, I do think that the jungle is not a particularly bad place to be. The jungle has been talked about prior to its introduction, um, such as the crashed aircraft that you get the quest for in Act 1. So it's not completely out of left field that you go to it. And yeah, there are worse places than the jungle, most certainly. It's got enough stuff to do. There's enough quests to do, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. If the jungle section was longer, I would definitely rank it lower, because I think the length that the jungle is at in the game is like a perfect length for it. It introduces you to the butcher. There are some notable jungle locations that you can think of, such as the River Village, Ghost Village, where you meet the butcher. You've got the Overpass Camp. You've got the Smuggler's Marina, where you fight Afran. And in general, the jungle's fine. It's not too overstaying of its welcome, and in general, it's just not that bad of a place, really. Not much more I can really add to it, I don't think. You get some of the best mods in the jungle, some of the highest ranking of mods you can get in the jungle, which is pretty cool. But in general, yeah, maybe would be nice to have a little bit more to do in the jungle, but I think that the length it's at is perfectly fine. The lab is also going up here with the jungle, because the lab is kind of a bit out of left field, but in a good way. I think it's nice to be at the lab than it is the jungle, because it's more civilization-y. You're actually in a permanent structure. You're in a laboratory, in a permanent concrete structure, I should say. So yeah, it's fine. It's not the biggest map. It's kind of one big loop, which is kind of a shame. There's not really any path you can go out of the way. They all sort of lead you to the same place. It's kind of like a big oval, in that if we get up the lab map, laboratory map, here we go, we'll just go for the smaller one. If I get up the lab map, and we have a look here, oh no, never mind. Yeah, I mean, we sort of start here, and it's basically one big continuous loop around this way. It's kind of slightly cut off there, but yeah, it's kind of just a big loop. Here's where Moen's boat is. Drive up to the lab. You drive over here to Ope's cave, and then you walk down, and it's just one big loop. You're divided entirely by this big island, not big island, this big rock formation, this big cliff face, and it's kind of like you can go this way, but it leads you just back to the lab. This is just part of the lab essentially, and then this is all just tree. It's all just trees, and then you've obviously got the bit of Ope's cave there, and then you have this weird extra lab area, and then you get back to Moen's boat. So it's kind of just a big loop, big oval. There's not really that much to do. You can tell that they were kind of starting to rush, or they were running out of ideas for sort of side quests to do, because there's not that many of them. With each section of main quest, you kind of have a couple of mandatory ones to do, and then you have a couple of extra ones. So in total, you've got about 10 or so side quests, one per scientist nearly. And it's kind of would be nice to have a bit more to do. Maybe you get some new mods, some new weapons, perhaps other than the Tijuana machete, notably. There's also not really that many standout features of the lab. You kind of have the lab, Moen's boat, and Ope's cave, and they're kind of like your three landmarks. And then you have the lab village to the south of it, and it's kind of not that much to do, not that much to see. It's just it's very much a sort of story focused area that you sort of go to, do the main quest, leave. There's not really much to hang around. There's not really much to see, much to do. No new zombies are introduced here after all as well, so it's kind of very much very much feels a bit like a filler section. And talking of filler section, the catacombs are definitely catacombs, aka Tomb of Natives, very much filler, a sort of filler location. Getting the blood sample, tissue sample for Dr. West from a mummy, kind of makes sense, I guess, when you think about it and what he wants to achieve with it. But at the same time, the catacombs are kind of filler. You could have done it elsewhere. You could have added it onto the lab map and made the lab map more exciting, but you didn't. You travel to it and then you leave. I don't think there's a way to get back again after you leave. There might be fast. Actually, I think there is. There is a fast travel map you can get to, I think, in Opey's village. And you can travel to and from the catacombs that way. But there's no point. There's no NPCs. The zombies are kind of sporadically located. They're kind of concentrated in two main areas, basically Opey's village and the village that you go to after you escort Yerima out of the cave. You can't actually go into the main tomb, which is a really big missed opportunity. There's no way of entering with all the mummies, which is a shame because it looks like a really cool area and one that I would love to have been able to explore in sort of a free roaming way instead of just having a look at it via the cutscene. But you don't get to do that. You can't enter the tomb itself. There's no NPCs, like I said, so there's no merchants. There's nothing to collect. There's some metal chests here and there, but there's no mods. There's a bunker that you can't easily access, and if you do access it, there's nothing in there. And it's very much just a sort of filler area. There's nothing to do really in the catacombs. Yeah, there's no point to them. So I'm just gonna leave them in. You know what? Screw it. Put them in F tier. The prison. I'm gonna put the prison in B tier, I think. Because it's kind of an location. Once again, we don't get a map. When the prison has a map, there exists a map for the prison, and once again you can find this map. Once again, you can access this map from the strategy guide, and it is also obviously here on the wiki as well. But yeah, these maps do exist in the strategy guide, so they were made. They just aren't in the game, and I don't know why. I think Prima might make these maps, but then at the same time, what was really stopping Techland from doing it? Yeah, they're all here. It's covering everything. This is upstairs of the. At least I think this is upstairs of the shower room. But anyway, I digress. You know, these maps exist, they just aren't accessible in-game, which really makes traversing it yourself outside of a main quest not that great, because you can get lost, obviously. Of the prison that you get in the main game, it's pretty small and concentrated. There's not really that many standout areas. You kind of have cell block A, and then you have the canteen, and then you unlock the kitchen, which gets devoid of zombies, and the storeroom. And then you have like kind of the upstairs offices, which all sort of mesh together. And it's kind of like there's not really that many standout features. You can't get to it outside of the main quest. There's no map to help traverse. There's like 4 side quests to do, which is nothing. It's really at that point they were probably stressing for time, in terms of finding quests to put in and where to put them and how to put them in, which means that there's very little to do outside of the main quest, and it's very much the sort of location where the game finishes. That's kind of its role, which it could have been a lot more. Having a free roam prison area to traverse, like Moresby is free roam and accessible, having that, but for the prison, would have been great. But that's not what you get. That's not what you get. You get the very much enclosed prison area that you don't get to see much of. Ryder's campaign does a lot for the prison in that it includes a lot more areas to visit. You've got the cell block C, for example. You visit the armory, you visit the execution room, death row. You get to go outside of the prison, and you actually get to see the outside of it, which is really cool. I wish they had more of that in either Ryder's campaign or the main game, or both. You've got sort of the whole basement area. You have just the docks area. All sorts of places that you can go in Ryder's campaign that you just don't get in the main game, which is a real shame because putting the two of them together, making them accessible, and having a mini map and some more NPCs maybe with more quests would have been amazing. But you don't get that. You don't get that. What you get is an enclosed, streamlined, very quick area of the game, which takes about an hour, 2 hours to get through maybe, and then you can go straight back to the island and you can spend 10 times that amount in the resort. And so it's kind of like, actually saying, no, I'm going to put the prison in Ceta. Yeah, it's kind of not great. It could have been so much more. It had so much more potential that they could have done with it that they just didn't, which is a real shame. And now we're going to move on to Riptide here, and we're looking at the flooded jungle. That's going to go in C here. The flooded jungle is very much the McGindy jungle, except worse. And I say worse because half of it is flooded, so it's inaccessible to anything other than the boat, and traversing by boat would have been fine if they didn't have drowners that would run at you every second and try and get onto your boat and pull you off. And if they didn't have drowners, the flooded jungle would probably be up in B tier. But it's not, it's in C tier because of that, and also it's the opening area of Riptide, and they don't introduce zombies slowly like they did in the first game. They didn't pace it out. In the first game, you get a very nice progression of zombie difficulty that gets introduced as your character levels up. So in the resort, you get the introduction to the special infected, but the special infected are easy to deal with your current skill level and weapons at your disposal. Once you reach Moresby, you probably have some decent rarity weapons. You're starting to get mods. You're starting to experience modding them and upgrading them. So they introduce rams, which are more tough, but you can still deal with them with your skill set. And then once you reach the jungle, you probably have some good mods under your belt. You probably have a legendary weapon. You have some high tier rarity things. You have decent skills, so they throw butchers at you, and that's the toughest enemy in the game. But at that point, you're able to deal with it. The flooded jungle, they don't do that. They let you loose at level 15. They let you loose in the jungle. You can go anywhere, and you can meet floaters. You can meet butchers. You can meet basically anything from the first game, and you can just meet it straight away with no skills, with no good weapons. You've literally just come off of a boat crash and bam, have a floater to deal with. And it's kind of like, that's not good progression. That's just kind of really stifling the big opening area, the opening stages of the game, as you are struggling to level up and find good weapons to deal with these difficult special infected that are kind of, not that fun to deal with, especially when you don't have good weapons, mods, or equipment to deal with them. And then, you can access some of it by car, but it's really not that much of it. It would have been nice to have it more open, more areas car accessible. And not having drowners that would come and kill you when you're in the boat would make the boat a lot more enjoyable. And even when you are in the boat, just the flooded areas are just kind of a pain to have to find a boat. You can freely enter them, but it involves wading everywhere because you can't run in the water, so you're walking everywhere. And if you get knocked down, you start drowning because you're in the water. If you want to go faster, you have to find a boat in certain areas, so you have to congregate to a certain area. And then you have to, get there somehow. And it's kind of kind of just a pain to traverse, especially with all of the various zombies and special infected that you have to deal with. There's enough NPCs to give it enough time to do things. Or sorry, to give you enough things to do, I should say. Yeah, you have the main safe houses, and you do have some notable areas. You have, Mataka Village, Halai Village, Paradise Survival Camp. You have the Marix Marina. Um, so you have these sorts of areas, but then there's not really any notable areas other than the helicopter crash and the Santa Maria mission in the flooded areas. Kind of a lot of it is very much just filler area. They don't do anything with it. Sure, there's like a single civilian rescue quest at the Bray outpost, um, but otherwise you never go. There's no point to ever go to the Bray outpost. No quest takes you there as far as I can remember. Not even Maya's side quest. And talking of the NPCs that are around that aren't in safe houses that have quests to do are either incredibly out of the way, such as Maya, with no way of getting to them, like Maya, because she has no fast travel. If you want to get there, you have to wade or go by boat, which involves dealing with drowners once again, and infected every time you want to get to them. And they're kind of just really out of the way, and you have to get to them every time, and you kind of can't be bothered. There's also kind of a lack of side quests that you would want to do. There's enough side quests, yes, but they're not really that exciting or interesting. And what I'm about to say next is also kind of going to seem hypocritical to what I just said about there being not enough side quests. But because of the mobility issues within the flooded jungle, it overstays its welcome for me. It just never seems to end. You spend about half of the game, quite literally, in the flooded jungle. I would say about 40 to 50% of the main story completion percent takes place in the jungle, which is too much. Honestly, there is no need to be in the jungle for that long, but there's just so many side quests that you have to go through, so many hoops to have to jump through. You have to go to Halai Village, go to Marix Marina, come back, go to Marix Marina, put an engine on the boat, take the boat to the Paradise, and then Paradise to wherever, back to once you're at Paradise, back to bloody Halai Village, off to Mataka Village, go on a fetch quest for the Mataka Village people, back to Paradise, Siege Defense Paradise, go back to Halai Village, go to, the Santa Maria mission, go back to Marix Marina again for a mud pump, come back to the mission, go to the helicopters crash, come back to the mission, and then finally you get to leave the flooded jungle. It's just so much back and forth, going to the same 3 or 4 key locations, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, find something, transport something, talk to someone. It's just so much back and forth across quite literally the entire map. You had some instances of that in the first game, going around the bases of operations such as the lifeguard station. Everything sort of revolved around the lifeguard station. You go out, find something, take it back. But the difference is that it was easy to get around the resort because you have a car that can go places. And even when you had to go to other places, they often had a fast travel map or somewhere nearby with a fast travel map that you can use to get back easily. Once you get to Halai Village, you don't actually get access to the safe house in Halai Village and therefore the fast travel map until Paradise has been burnt to the ground. Which means that you have no way of getting back to Paradise quickly without driving there or traversing there. You can go to Mataka Village, but you don't have access to the fast travel map until you do the main quest to open it up and finding the bark to open it up for the natives that are there. Everything is just kind of off with the flooded jungle and not great. The dead zones are cool, sure, but at the same time they don't excuse all of the massive errors and problems that the flooded jungle has for me. Which is why I'm going to leave it in C tier. I would even put it in D tier, but I think it's just not as... D and F tier are really for the very much filler areas, such as the Japanese tunnels. Now, there's no side quest to do in the Japanese tunnels. You do have Dr. Kessler's side quest, a history lesson, where he needs you to get some tissue samples and whatnot. And that's fine, that gives you another objective as you go through. But once again, the tunnels does not have a map, so you can't check your map. It's easy to get lost. It's incredibly dark. It is atmospheric, and it does look pretty cool. Exploring an abandoned Japanese fortification like the Japanese tunnels is very cool. You do get to fight some human enemies at the end, which kind of is a good marking point of, okay, we're at the end of the tunnels now, we're free. And it is light and whatnot. And that gives a nice change of pace, quite honestly. The Japanese tunnels isn't as bad as, you know, the catacombs or something, or the sewers. But, yeah, I'm gonna say the tunnels could be more. They could be nicer, they could be more... they could be kind of better laid out. More to do, maybe, more to see. Easier to traverse, definitely, because it would be nice to have, you know, a map to walk around and have a look at where we are instead of guessing, because you can't put down waypoint pins or anything because there's no map. You know, just a lot of problems with the Japanese tunnels that could be fixed if we just had a map and various things like, you know, being able to see and not having to use our flashlight or flares so extensively, at least. And yeah, just some more things to do in there would have been nice. Maybe introducing a zombie, because no zombie gets introduced there. You do meet some grenadiers. It's kind of cool, I suppose. But at the same time, it's kind of a wasted area. Talking of wasted area, that's definitely the case with the ferry station. The Pinai ferry station, it's going above the catacombs because there is a bit more to look at. There's some more interesting things in the ferry station. There is more things to do in the ferry station. There is a side quest that takes you back there, which is Yorg Tassero's side quest, the heist of the century, the bank heist one. He takes you back there a little bit, and there is a fast travel map. And the thing that really makes the ferry station worth being above the catacombs is that after you complete the siege mission, you can go back there and you can loot, repeatedly loot the crates that are there for some goodies and whatnot. Yeah, there's some notable areas of the ferry station. Obviously, the ferry station itself, you have the beach, and then you have like the maintenance area in front of it where you've got like the car park and whatnot. So there's also the named zombies, Caden and Jaden, which yeah, they're nice little sub-boss zombies that you can kill, and you get an achievement for killing them. But it's also the place where you first get a sniper rifle. You first get your bolt-action sniper rifle. So there's that. It's worthwhile for that as well. But otherwise, there's no side quests that actually are there. There's no NPCs. None that come with you, at least. You do have the prisoners, but you kill them. So yeah, no NPCs. It's a very small area. There's not much to do, not much to see, not much to find or collect. And in general, once again, it could have been a lot more. It could have been more open, it could have been more exciting. We could have gone up to the highway, for example. We could have gone and explored some more areas of the road. There could have been more done with the ferry station, but otherwise it is quite literally the definition of a filler area, of a filler area in either of the games. It is very much, quite literally, just a place you go to advance the plot and leave. You really don't get much more with it. Henderson, I'm putting in A tier and I'm putting it above Moresby, but I'm not putting it in S tier with the resort. And that's because Henderson is fantastic. I love Henderson. It's like the one good-looking place in Riptide. It's bright, it's sunny, just like the resort is. It's a really nice place to be and sit around. It's got lovely visuals. The fact that it is modelled after a sort of Mediterranean town really does help it. You obviously once again get a map so that we can actually look around. There is quite a few things of note in Henderson. The military base, the old town cinema, the makeshift hospital, the old fort, the ferry station, the bank, town hall, church. All of these sorts of things. Quarantine, obviously, and it's a fine place. However, there is limited access to some areas in that there's no fast travel nearby. And there is side quests to do, but they're all kind of out of the way, and a bunch of them are just civilian rescue quests, which are very quick to do and they're kind of filler. Mostly, I'm not putting it in S tier because of the zombies that are in there. You also don't go there for much. It's kind of the last 30% of the game that you're in Henderson, and it's kind of would have liked to have spent a bit longer in Henderson. Give it some more quests, some more main quests to do, give it some more side quests, reduce the time you spend in the flooded jungle, increase the time in Henderson. But mainly Henderson isn't going in S tier because of the zombies that are there. So what do we get? Well, we get wrestlers, we get rams, we get suiciders, we get obviously infected, walkers, you have some drowners in some areas, and you have screamers. And kind of the zombies and where they're placed are just not fun. Wrestlers themselves are easy to deal with, sure. They're not that difficult. They're kind of just stronger health thugs. Suiciders are just the suiciders. Infected are kind of annoying in where they're placed. Rams are the main issue, along with screamers. So the reason why rams are most difficult is not because they've been changed necessarily. Rams still act the same as rams in Riptide. The problem is where they're placed is very often in tight enclosed streets with no way of properly dodging, which means that they will charge at you, and no matter where you dodge, you're going to get hit by them. And if you get knocked back, you'll get knocked back into something, and then they'll kick you, and they'll do loads of damage, and then you'll die. So where they're placed, they're just really inoptimally placed to give the player a chance to actually, deal with them and not be murdered by them. So yeah, that's the issue with rams in Henderson. I hate where they're placed in Henderson. They're always placed in inopportune areas that are really difficult to actually get around them and kill them, because their weak point is at their back, and if you can't get around their sides to get to their back, they're impervious and you can't deal with them. So yeah, rams in Henderson, no bueno. Screamers are screamers. They don't take headshot damage, at least not notable headshot damage, so you can't easily deal with them that way. They're fast like infected, they do way more damage than infected. They debilitate you with their scream, which stops you from attacking or running or anything, and they're just placed bloody everywhere. They're placed in really opportune areas, once again, that cut off entire areas, that make you have to go through the screamer, and when you don't want to go through the screamer, well, too bad, you're going to have to go through the screamer because there's no other way around. So the zombies are really what stopped me from liking Henderson as much as the resort, because even though it's the same sort of vibe, the same sort of look, it's just not as fun. So yeah. There's also, like I say, there's side quests to do, but they're all placed really far out of the way of any sort of safe house to fast travel to, so it requires a lot of travel time. They're usually fetch quests, and they're also kind of not that great. They're just not that great. Some of them give some interesting things like electrotherapy for Damien's side quest memories. I mean, it's nice to get a mod that's interesting like that, but the problem is that you can't easily get the parts back to make it again, which means that you're limited to putting it on one weapon a playthrough, which kind of defeats the point of having a reward for that side quest. And yeah, it's just kind of there's just kind of enough off with Henderson to stop me putting it in S tier, but there's enough to keep it in A tier because it's the nicest place in Riptide. It's the last place you go to, and it's sort of where the game's been building up to get to all this time. You finally get to it, and it's a really nice place to look at. It's got some interesting ideas and things, but at the same time, yeah, it could have been a lot more, and so I'm keeping it here in A tier. And finally, we've got the docks. And if you're not sure what the docks are the area where you go to fight Harlow at the end of the game. And I'm putting it down here in D tier because, like the other filler areas, I'm actually also going to move the sewers down as well. I'm going to move the sewers here, I think. Below the prison, actually. There you go. Because yeah, I'll leave them there. So yeah, because the docks are very much sort of filler areas, you don't get a. Well, I say filler area. They're technically the end game area. They're the boss fight area, but at the same time, you don't get a map like the other places. You don't get a map to easily traverse them. It's difficult to get lost because they're very linear. There's sort of no backtracking necessary, no backtracking required. You get a lot of stuff. You can find a lot of ammo, a lot of throwables, a lot of weapons, firearms in the docks because they know that not every player will come prepared with firearms. And you kind of want firearms for the docks area and for the boss fight and what comes afterwards. So it's a good resource heavy area in terms of like I say, firearms and things. But at the same time, there's once again no side quests, there's no NPCs, there's no reason to come back after you've completed that part of the main quest. There is a fast travel point at the end of it at the boat, which is nice because it allows you to go back and buy whatever you need, hand in things to NPCs to complete side quests. It's nice that they gave you that option because they realised that people probably didn't like that from Dead Island, where you had to wait until after you left the prison again to go and do all your side quests again. So it is nice that they added in that. That means that you can leave at any time and end the game whenever you wanted. You're not locked in. However, yeah, the docks area is very much a sort of just filler area. There's not much to do. It is quite literally A to B, story beat, done. It's kind of a waste of an area. It would be nice to see more done with it. And the zombies that it gives you are all very linear, sort of end of corridor sort of things that you can just shoot at or throw things at, put down mines, and yeah, it's not that inspired. It's kind of a corridor shooter at that point, which is, I suppose, an interesting change up. It gives you time to use firearms, I suppose. But yeah, like I say, it just could have been a lot more. And it could have been more interesting, more exciting. And that is it for the tier list. 12 locations, not including sub areas. This isn't including things like the prison, the supermarket, Dr. Kessler's biosphere, building interiors, etc., etc. These are just the main locations. And yeah, this is how the tier list ends up looking. So, like I said, if you disagree with any of that, that's fine. That is, of course, your opinion. This is obviously my opinion on how I rank these things. So, yeah, feel free to, say what you would do in the comments. And once again, I will leave a link to this tier list in the description. And if you join the Discord, you can post your tier list in there. And show how you would have ranked these things. So with that, I will thank you all for watching, and goodbye.